but from this trailer alone, it makes me think that the show might be doomed.
Actually, this show ain't that bad. No, I know. Heresy, am I right? But after giving Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man a fair shot, I think it's good to say that it's pretty alright. No, it's not this masterclass of perfection that people are freaking out about, but it's also not as bad as many people, including myself, thought it would be. But fair is fair, and I think fans deserve a fair analysis on this show in its entirety and if it's worth the watch. For context, Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man is an MCU-adjacent show where instead of Peter Parker being offered an internship by Tony Stark, he's given an actual internship by Norman Osborn, where he serves as his mentor and sugar daddy, allowing Peter to realize his potential and strive to be the hero he wants to be. Now initially, I was worried about its masochistic characters, especially its big-name heroes being involved in stealing the spotlight. But the show does a good job integrating them into the story, and if anything, it ties well into the overarching MCU while being a standalone story. I mean, to be fair, Iron Man is pretty much a cameo, while Doctor Strange and Daredevil actually get their moments to shine, with Strange being the biggest standout considering the fact the first season is a time loop. But despite these appearances, Spider-Man remains the central focus, and it's intriguing to see MCU elements like the Sokovia Accords actually mean something. That said, Spider-Man's story sometimes takes a backseat to Tombstone, simply because Tombstone is a more interesting character. Which is weird, because typically he's like a B-list, C-list villain? I don't know, Tears, but I respect the effort put into his characterization, struggle, and downfall, where his story is obviously supposed to mirror Peter's, with both of them carrying the weight of responsibility but going about it in different ways. Where Tombstone finds freedom in abandoning his previous responsibilities and takes over the 1/10th gang by the end of the season, which is highly predictable, but still good. There's elements I could definitely criticize, but his story arc is still in progress, so I'm gonna withhold talking about it. But I'm curious to see how they handle his friendship with Peter/Spidey going forward, especially as he falls deeper into villainy. And since I'm talking about one good villain, I might as well talk about Norman Osborn, considering the fact we all know he's being set up to be Green Goblin. As if the green suits and glider weren't a dead giveaway. Norman's characterization is great. On the outside, he's the entrepreneur, philanthropist, trying to seemingly do good, but in reality, he's a liar and manipulator who uses people like Peter for both his skill set as Spider-Man and his intelligence, allowing him to gain a power source for his personal experiment and a connection to Thunderbolt Ross, a government official and future president? Maybe? I don't know, timelines are weird. But because of Norman's actions, it leads to the downfall of Otto Octavius, where they're definitely pulling some influence from Spider-Man PS4 with Otto's hatred of Norman motivating him to do evil. Although it's annoying how they're just teasing us with those tentacles.
Bro, what are you talking about?
It's kinda crazy that a lot of these characters are better than its lead, and it's not because Peter is necessarily bad, it's just that he's average. Here's the thing, the show understands Spider-Man and the responsibility that comes with it, but it doesn't quite understand who Peter Parker is. Sure, it's definitely an improvement of how he's characterized in the MCU, but this Peter is too perfect, as in he has no flaws. Yeah, he shows up late and attempts to lie, but that's not really a flaw. He's overall a very good-natured person, and that's why he becomes Spider-Man, which feels like a missed opportunity because Uncle Ben exists, and they decided to kill him off way before Peter got bit. I get that they're trying to subvert expectations, but by doing so, they got rid of Peter's depth, motivation, and development. Yes, they respect Uncle Ben, and you can feel the impact it's had on May and Peter, but I feel like to truly grasp it, you need to see a Peter Parker with flaws who's still trying to grasp Ben's teachings. By already learning them and just having him doubt his ability to handle responsibility is just not as engaging. He doesn't need to be like the comics where Peter had anger issues and was a bit of a jerk, but I feel like by purposely subverting expectations, it sanitizes emotional depth and how he interacts with the characters around him. For example, while I think Harry and Peter have a genuinely good dynamic, I feel like Peter and Nico lack a lot of emotional depth, which is odd considering the fact the show heavily relies on their friendship for some of its emotional moments. Nico is initially introduced as Peter's best friend, but we're mainly told about their bond rather than seeing it. It doesn't feel fully authentic, especially with the limited one-on-one time between the two of them. So when the show introduces conflict into their relationship with her finding out that Peter is Spider-Man, it doesn't really hit. It feels forced rather than impactful, and if the series had dedicated more time to showing their connection, it would have carried way more weight. And it didn't help that Nico herself had very little individual depth until she was paired up with Harry. And this issue also applies to Pearl, Peter's love interest, who's just a standard nice girl who cares a lot about Tombstone. And while she's important to Tombstone's story, she adds almost nothing to Peter since there's no real chemistry or substance in their dynamic. The most development she gets with Peter is finally seeing him as an equal rather than a kid, but beyond that, she remains largely underdeveloped. Which leads to another issue. Besides the villains I've previously mentioned and Scorpion, most of the villains are pretty bland. Like yes, this is the starting point for a lot of his villains, but a lot of them are pretty forgettable from their designs to their motivation and personalities. With such an iconic rogues gallery that's on par with Batman's, that shouldn't be the case. Whether it's due to lackluster writing, weak visual design, or rushed character development, many of these villains fail to make a lasting impression. And this problem is further caused by its inconsistent pacing, where it struggles to balance Peter, Tombstone, and various side characters. Early episodes drag with unnecessary filler that doesn't meaningfully contribute to the story, characters, or world building. While the pacing improves later on, too many moments feel like they just exist to pad out an episode rather than enhance its narrative. Trust me, I don't mind slow burns, but I feel like the same story could be told in less time with the exact same amount of weight, where it could have provided more time to its villains while maintaining the role of its two main protagonists. I know I'm saying a lot of negative things, and trust me, I could take pot shots on Peter not really facing consequences or lacking spider sense, which he's had since Civil War, or that Lonnie is kind of a hypocrite who doesn't face consequences yet, or how Peter lets two crime gangs go scot-free, and that he should have said "I quit" to Norman Osborn, cementing his arc on being his own individual hero, but I'm not gonna do that. Instead, I'm gonna beat the dead horse with a stick and talk about the animation again. And yeah, the animation is mid. It has good character acting, but it really falters when it comes to its action. Its actual choreography for its sequences is good, it's just the animation doesn't hold up. I don't know if it looks this way because they're animating this on 2s or since it's 3D animation, so it lacks a lot of compositing, motion fundamentals, etc. I think if this show was 2D, it would have 100% been better visually because all the artwork they show at the end of each episode looks great. It just doesn't translate well in a 3D medium, and it hurts its overall impact. Anyways, that's enough about dead horses. Let's talk about the future of the show, because I think the series has great potential with the introduction of the Venom symbiote, Doc Ock stepping into the fold, Tombstone being the head of a crime gang, and there's definitely a level of intrigue on having Peter's father still alive. But I have some serious concerns on the introduction of Web, a foundation started by Harry for geniuses, and the introduction of Spider-Gwen. Ghost? Spider-Woman? Dude, I have no clue. They're always changing it. But Web is giving me Spider-Man 2017 PTSD with Horizon High, considering the school is going to have Peter and all of his superhero pals and villains in one place. It's nice when Peter is surrounded by human characters because it grounds him, but when he's alongside other kid heroes, it typically takes away his importance. And that's something I'm really worried about with the introduction of Gwen Stacy, since it's still his first year, and introducing another Spider-Human into the fray is something that typically doesn't go well. Once again, my Spider-Man 2017 PTSD is intensifying. However they decide to handle this is definitely up to debate, and while certain elements don't personally land for me, I understand why many people would like this series, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on it, because I do think it has potential to be something special, even if I don't think it's a masterpiece or perfect. Heck, I'd even hesitate to call it good since there's so much left to tell. But it's a show that has its strong and weak moments, and for me, it's at least serviceable for now. There is definitely a love for the character, even if the writing needs some work, and I at least think it deserves a fair shot to tell the story it wants to tell, no matter how different it is. Is it worth it? Who knows? I'm here to inform you on my opinion in a non-glazeful way and trying to be honest with you on its quality so you guys can make the judgment for yourself. Is that a cop-out? Yeah, but I think if you're willing to give it a shot, then give it a shot, and if you think it's not worth it due to the changes it made to the core Peter Parker and the treatment of his villains, then it's okay. We all have our own idealistic view on our favorite heroes, but ultimately the way we choose to engage with them is up to us. What matters most is embracing our choices and taking responsibility for them, just like the heroes that inspire us. If you made it this far, please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the kind of content I'm making. This is Balthazar, signing off.